What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis. If you'd like to join up my Patreon, please do, so you can get more tech support, and join up on our Discord chat. It is really awesome. It's like a $1 a month or something like that, less than the price of a cup of a coffee. So today we've got something super cool on the bench. This is the DTS GT200. It's a 5-inch X frame style unibody race quad, and I think it's versatile for FPV racing if you're doing multi-GP, or if you want to do big air freestyle. You can do either or. It has a flat rail on the top, which I like for putting a GoPro on there. It will absolutely tote a GoPro or a Session, whatever couch you want to put on top. And I'll show you a really easy way to just slap a GoPro on there with a strap. So a few different ways that you can put a camera on top of this one. But the cool thing is that this one looks pretty indestructible, and the way they've built this up, it's rather kind of unique, the way they have some of the internal flight controller structure and the way they have the motors soldered onto the 4-in-1 ESC on the bottom. It is a 4-in-1 30 amp BL Heli D-Shot 600 ESC, and you're able to run 4S on this. I wouldn't really push it past 4S. It's not really set up for that, but you also have 4 2206 2500 kV motors, so not the real high end of the spectrum for the kV, which I think is great. Somewhere in the sweet spot for that, not too low, not too high, so you're going to get good performance, but you're also going to get a power system on here that's not going to be a total battery ripper, so you can expect like 3 to 4 minute flight times. If you want to put a 4S 1300 on here, you can get 3 minutes. If you want to get in upwards of 4 minutes, you can put a 3S 1500 on bottom of the quad. So no real top mount option here. It's usually a bottom mount situation, but I like some of the stuff that they have going on here. Check this out. I haven't really seen this before. This is on a spring so that it bends back, and you're not going to pull your receiver wires out of the receiver here, and you're likely not to break this antenna. So this is kind of also, again, a unique design, spring loaded, and if you hit the ground, it has a lot of give there. So that's really cool. I have broken off quite a few receiver antennas by crashing and getting something snatched or pulled, as well as vertical mounted antennas. You definitely don't want to do that. So we thought about some of that, but we'll go ahead and jump more into that after we come back from the flight test. Let's go ahead now. Let's do some line of sight with this GT200, and I'll show you what it looks like for my maiden flight in FPV out over top of a huge mountain range. It's one of those areas where I was hoping that I had it totally set up right, because there would be no recovery of this quad in the spot that I flew it first. But I've had it all week. I've been testing it all week, and everything checks out great. So that's good news for you guys. But let's go ahead and do some flying now. We'll come back in the studio and we'll do some specifics on the bench, and I'll give you my opinion of the GT200. Here we go. All right, here we go. Props out. And these are with the stock props. Got a little bit of light behind me, so the quad looks pretty lit up. But on these overcast days, it can be a little bit challenging to fly once you get kind of high up. We'll do some punch outs with it. We'll do some flips and rolls. We're just kind of testing out the hover right now and listening to the power system. Sounds really smooth. It's kind of what I expected. And this is not the maiden flight. I've flown this all this week. I took it up to the mountains for you guys, and I actually maiden over top of some snowy field out actually down the side of the mountain. So I'm glad that everything checked out there. The rates were set a little bit high, and I might have done that in Betaflight originally setting it up. I might have upped the rates to 75, but the flight controller is really responsive. The Omnibus F4SD is great firmware. It's a great flight controller, F4. So let's go ahead and do a punch out real quick. 1, 2, 3. Nice. All the way up to the apex, kind of flipping back down. Really quiet coming back down. Get a little bit far away from you then. So from what I saw, the race footage looked pretty insane. The pilot that was flying it was not the greatest pilot in the world, but nice. Looking right about where I want it to be. Yeah, so it wasn't the greatest pilot in the world, but I could tell that this quad had a lot of, I guess, a lot of good characteristics for a racer if you want to race this multi-GP. Also, it has a nice flat rail on the top for some freestyle GoPro footage. Got plenty of room up top. If you want to put a GoPro couch on it, or you just want to strap one on there with a strap and some foam, which is the easiest way to do it. It's already got a little bit of tilt there. There it goes again. A couple flips up top. Flying in acro right now, no stabilization. Still a couple throttle bumps. I believe those were 2206 motors on here by DTS. Kind of cool because they're kind of shiny. A lot of motors are having that kind of shiny look to them lately. I see a lot of silver and gold motors out there right now. iFlight's doing some. Also my guys over at Flywoo. Flywoo's got some really cool looking motors coming out. Some silver and gold ones like these. Thing's crazy, dude. So let's go ahead. This is a lot of fun to fly line of sight, but where I have the most fun is FPV as always. So let's go ahead and bring it over here. It's a little bit wet on the ground, so I'm gonna watch out for the water today. But it's better than snow everywhere. All right, guys, let's go ahead. Do a little bit of FPV with this GT200. Pretty cool little quad. Alright guys, welcome back from the flight test. I think that went pretty well. I used the stock props that I had in the box. I was going to use some of the ethics props that I got from HQ a while back because I think they're a nice sort of a thinner cord and will probably give me a little bit longer flight time. But I wanted to show you guys how this would run out of the box, and these are DTS props. I thought they looked a little bit thick on the cord, and I thought that might be dragging more sort of milliamps out of the battery than I really need. So honestly, you probably could run a little thinner cord, and I think the tips look pretty good with that taper on the end. I always like that for a nice smooth airflow and a nice quiet motor. They are running props out configuration on this quad, and the motors are 2206, which they actually look pretty decently polished. The outside bells look decent. 2500 kV, I was talking about this before. This is sort of a mid-range kV setup to where it's going to give you a little longer flight time than something super aggressive like 27 to 2800 kV. So probably a little less kV is just going to be a little more efficient for your power setup. So especially for new guys, if you're using this quad as a trainer and you just want something that's just going to bind up to your radio and work right from the get-go, this is kind of an easy setup for the power system on here as far as performance goes. You're still going to get a really great punch out of this motor, but you're also going to get a nice efficiency out of it. Now, what's also interesting to me is that they did use some heat shrink over top of the wires, tidy all that, and it's actually pretty tidy in here. The way they have this soldered up, all of it, there's no kind of slack in the wires all the way around, and they decided to use carbon bumpers on the bottom of the motors instead of using your traditional TPU bumpers. And that's kind of a cool little bit of a different thing that I've seen from a lot of different companies. They usually use TPU. The only bad thing about this is that when you land on concrete, you could scratch these up. So most of the time I suggest landing this type of bumper in the grass. On the bottom they also have a flat bed for just about any size battery that you'd like to put on there, you could do. You have a little bit of an extra long strap here to accommodate something like a 1500. You also have kind of a nice rubber coating over top of that strap and a metal buckle. It has an inspection pass sticker on this back arm right here, which I find great because I've seen this on some higher quality quads out there. And also, which is really nice, all the body hardware is also recessed hardware. So everything here, all of your M3 screws and nuts and bolts are all recessed inside the frame, even on the side. But my favorite part of this frame is looking at this frame from the side. You have plenty of camera protection here, top and sides, and you still have plenty of tilt. You've got a 2-bolt setup on the camera, so you could take 1 bolt out. If you really want to go get some extreme angle on that, you can. You have a slot through the side right here. You can run your strap through and around your GoPro Session, or if you're running a Hero 7 like I am, it'll also fit that on top. There's also another set of holes right behind that for anything else you want to add. If you were doing zip ties on this, you could do that. They have smaller hardware here, which looks like M2 hardware on these struts that go across. Give it a little bit of extra reinforcement from the top, but I do like a flat rail on the top of a quad, and there's not a lot of sort of intrusions right here. I put my XM Plus just inside there on top of this little post right here. There's actually a little shelf right there for your receiver. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's really nice that they have a little shelf there, and they had a little piece of foam tape there that I could stick my receiver down to and run a zip tie around it. Now, like I said before, I absolutely love the side of this frame. All of the reinforced ABS extra pieces and parts that they put around the edge of the carbon to kind of strengthen everything up just looks really, really cool. There's even a heatsink coming off the top of the VTX right here underneath that piece of carbon. You see that? They also have a spot here for USB port for your Betaflight, and they have 2 buttons here on the side just above the USB port. There's channel on the left, and then there is bands on the right. And this guy, the VTX, actually goes from 25 milliwatt all the way up to 600 milliwatts. So it really does have a nice range. If you want to just do some proximity multi-GP racing, turn it down to 25. If you want to do some big open air flying, like freestyle flying out in a big field, you can crank this baby up to 600 milliwatt. But let's take a look at the back of this quad. I really think this design is really neat. You've got more ABS sort of parts and components back here, and notice there's also a spring here just above where your XT60 wire, your battery leads come out. Right here, it's connected to these 2 ABS parts right here, and the VTX antenna post comes up here, your SMA connector there, and I'm using the Lollipop 2, And then we have 2 posts for my receiver antennas on the left and right of that lollipop. But I love that it's spring loaded. That is so cool. And let's see how far down it'll go. You see my antenna wires just move in and out of those 2 poles going up on each side. So if you were to really rip this on the ground, it's not going to rip your antennas off the receiver, which I really, really like. So they're free moving inside there. And there's plenty of slack in this wire going to the antenna that it's not going to rip out of the VTX, which is really slick. I've never seen this before. So just a simple innovation on this frame design that I think is really worth noting. Now if you look just underneath the bottom of this lens right here, this is actually a run cam, and it looks like a special edition run cam Eagle 2. Judging from the notes that they gave on this one is 800 TVO, and it's switchable between NTSC and POW, which is great. It's also switchable between 16:9 letterbox format and 4:3, that standard race format that most racers like. So either way, you can switch back and forth with the FPV camera. I think the 800 TVO is very acceptable for this particular race quad. And I mean, honestly, I've flown 1200 TVL cameras, but I don't really notice a giant difference until you start using another camera, like something like the Falcor. The Falcor is really nice, but this one is comparable, and it actually performed really well in low light, which I was kind of impressed with. Now also in the box, I think for the price, I would expect a lot of extras with this quad. I think the price is probably more expensive than some of the other ones out there, but they're kind of branding this one to be one of those kind of all-in-one, just plug it up to your receiver, add your receiver on here, set up your radio, and go fly. And that's kind of the experience that I got here. I've been flying it probably a little over a week now, and that was my experience with it. I was able to just set up my XM Plus on here, set it up in Betaflight. I flew it on the Betaflight 3.2 that it first came with, and then I decided to fly it for you guys on 3.5, a more recent version of the Omnibus SD firmware. So either way, it flew great. So if you're brand new getting into the hobby, I think it's a pretty safe bet to just put a receiver on there and fly it with what firmware it has on there. Later on, you can worry about reflashing the firmware. You don't have to jump right into that. So fly it the way it came out of the box with that Betaflight 3.2. This is also the alternate antenna that came with it. It says GWY on here, and it looks like right-hand circular polarized with your male SMA connector on the bottom right there. And it's a pretty standard antenna. Doesn't look like anything fancy. It has that little plastic coating over the top. If you have some really hard crashes, you can break that off, but that's going to be because of your bad flying. So on the bottom, you also get a little battery protector. 2 little slots there. Your strap goes through, and you put this on the very bottom of your strap there, just like that. It kind of sort of cases in the battery and just gives it a little bit of protection. I typically don't use these. It just adds a little extra unnecessary weight in my opinion, but again, I have tacoed some batteries pretty good by having a belly-in landing, a belly-in crash landing. You also get some extra foam in the box, which is kind of cool. So if these 2 pieces of foam fall off, you have some backups. You've got your lens cap here. They also give you this sort of alternate exterior piece, which is kind of cool. This is a piece of aluminum hardware, left and right. You've got 2 struts up top, just like here. So you could take this black ABS off there if you just wanted to look a little more slick, kind of like what the diatone quads look like. They've gave you that option, which is kind of cool. So maybe later on, if this got kind of scratched up and you wanted to upgrade it to this later, it's only 4 bolts on the bottom, and then these 2 up top there that will go through the carbon right there. And just kind of a cool upgrade option that they gave you in the box, which most companies won't do that. They also gave you this interesting prop tool. This is a prop nut wrench. Just put it on top like that and spin it around to remove those prop nuts, which is kind of nice. Never seen one of these before in a kit, and I've seen a lot of kits. You get 2 little Allen wrenches. You get a little mini screwdriver for those little tiny screws. You also get 2 extra antenna caps, which are great because I always lose those. They always come off, so you get 4 of them in the box. And you get an extra harness in here. So this is kind of cool. This is for you DSMX guys. If you want to unplug the harness that's already on it that it comes with, it's set up for S-Bus and Frsky. This will be a different routing for your harness, your wire routing there. So kind of cool they did that for the Spectrum guys. And also you get some 3M tape here for putting your receiver down. These are extra pieces. You get 3 of those. And you get 2 manuals. One is a quick start guide in English. The other one is in Chinese, so I don't need that one, but you will definitely need this one. It also has all the specs in here, and it has the exploded layout of the quad itself, which I really like a lot. How it comes apart, 4 bolts on the bottom, release that top plate. It's pretty easy to access this stack, but look at this stack in here. It's all in one piece right there, all in that one unit. So if you had to replace this, you could open this up, take this off, unsolder your motor wires, and then just simply solder them back to a new one. So it's kind of cool that it makes it a little bit easier for somebody if you had to go and repair this or put a new one on there. It's not super complicated. They simplified it a lot for you. Way more simple than some of the other stacks out there if you're just getting into racing. You also get some DTS stickers, which you could put these on your goggles or your flight box, which is kind of cool. Now I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the scale and zero that up for you. And let's go ahead and get the dry weight, and that's without any type of battery or LiPo. 353.5 grams. That's with everything on it, the props, the receiver, everything on there. And now we'll add a 4S 1300 on there. This is a Luminaire graphene, and that's going to get us just over 500 grams. So it's a pretty average weight. It's not super light, and it's also not super heavy. So 524.3 grams is a pretty lightweight 5-inch unibody race quad. Now I just want to show you how simple the inside and the interior of this quad is, and the stack that they have set up inside here. I took 8 bolts off the bottom. These are those recessed M3 bolts, and I just set those over to the side. I also took the back strut off the back here with the 2 M2 nuts right there. So I'm just going to leave those 2 bolts and all that hardware right there, but I want to go ahead and pop this part off and show you this piece. This is really neat. So if you wanted to do that upgrade there, you could just pull that off and stick this other plate on there. And it looks like the carbon fiber is actually all in one piece with this one. This might add a different look to the quad. Like I said, more like that diatone race quad look. So I'm going to set that to the side and show you what this looks like, so you can see where the camera is sitting. I have my receiver sitting there, sort of front to back. You can also put it side to side. It was a little bit tight side to side, so I did it front to back, but plenty of room there. It's cool they have a receiver shelf as well, and there's that bendy piece there. Goes way back, and there's a good amount of slack there going to the VTX, which I like. And now the next part that you can remove 4 more bolts that hold on the camera and the back plate for the harness for your antenna. So you can pop that off, and you can just gently move that to the side like that. Now you have access to your stack, which is really cool. Check out this piece of hardware. Look at that giant heatsink there. That's really cool. And everything on the harness right here is labeled. You see the harness back here? I unplugged that. So you need to unplug that harness. Just pop it off with your fingers, and then you can push this to the side. Don't pull on this top plate, because you'll probably ruin your harness. But really neat looking. And then on the bottom of this is 4 more bolts holding that on. So if you want to replace that, you're going to take this piece off, and then you'll see those bolts holding the flight controller, the VTX, and everything all in one system right there. That's really kind of neat. So let's go ahead and sum it up, guys, and we'll do a little bit of Betaflight at the end of the video for guys who want to see how to set up the GT200. And now you guys can see that I added that different top plate on there, that aluminum top plate, just to show you what that looks like on the quad. It's only 4 bolts, so I figured I would just switch it out, because I had to put the quad back together anyway, and I really do like that carbon version of it. I think that one looks super cool. I'd almost keep this one on there and run this one for now, but I do like the way this one looks too. It might even actually be a little bit lighter, so it might give your quad just a little bit lighter weigh in than with the carbon fiber and the ABS exterior. You don't have all that extra plastic on that piece, but the quad was easy to work with. Good news is that I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and for the $295 price point, it better be good. It better fly great out of the box, and it better not give me any troubles. No troubles with the QC. Quality control is good on here. All of the solder joints look good on here, and I didn't have any problems with puff of smoke coming out of the quad at any time, which is great. It made it back to the bench all in one piece here for you. Not even a scratch on it, because it didn't have any problems with the flight controller timing out on me, or shorting out the ESCs, or doing any flips of death. So everything checked out, and I think that you're safe to buy this one. Honestly, I think it performs great, and just as good as anything out there by SkyStars. So I think it's comparable to anything else out there, and this one's one that I would stand behind, because I have been flying it all week on various size batteries. It's towed a GoPro. It's been with me in a bunch of different locations, and it's handled everything, even some sort of mildly wet environments as well. So everything is really quite shielded up in here. And as always, you can do some waterproofing of these components. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's a great quad, and I really do like all the extras. I love this carbon fiber top plate that it comes with. It looks really different than a lot of quads out there. But again, thanks for watching my reviews, guys. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon, that would be super awesome. We can chat behind the scenes and get involved with the community. But yeah, we have another decent one here, and there's not a lot of reviews out there on this one, so hopefully you enjoyed it. And guys that want to stick around for Betaflight later, I'm going to go ahead and do that at the end of this video. But thanks again for watching, you guys. I'm Justin Davis. Have a great day, and happy FPV, everybody. Please do click subscribe and hit that notification button down there as well. I'll see you on the next one. Okay guys, I have the USB cable plugged in now. We're inside Betaflight, and I have Betaflight 3.5.5 on here. And if you ever want to check what is on your flight controller, say you got a brand new quad from someone, you can just type in version at the bottom, hit return, and it'll show you what version of Betaflight's on there. It'll also show you the firmware target that you need to select if you want to reflash this board. Say it had that Betaflight 3.2 on there, and you want to upgrade it to the Betaflight that I have here and go through this video and do the setup. You can do that now, and then restart this video. Just pause it and come back to this point. Now we're going to go ahead through from top to bottom all the settings that I have that are custom in here for Betaflight 3.5.5, and we'll go up to the setup. And the first thing you want to do is turn your quad around facing you with the camera facing away, and you see how it's not correct there in the layout. Hit reset Z axis, and that will bring it back to you with the back facing you. Go ahead and check your pitch forward and backward there, your roll left and right. That looks good. So everything here looks good. You can also set the quad flat on your table and recalibrate the accelerometer if you want to, but not a big deal. It's already been calibrated. So for the port setup, your receiver is on UART 6 right here, so you want to have that selected for Serial RX. If you are using an Frsky XM Plus receiver, that's what you want to have set up. And I've got my TBS Smart Audio set to UART 1. I did not check that when I flew it with the Betaflight 3.5 on there. So it's either one of the two. So it's going to be UART 1 or 3. So the way you activate that is right at the end right here, TBS Smart Audio right there. If it's not working on TBS Smart Audio, select IRC Tramp, one of the two. And the problem with mine was that I didn't check it before I reflashed the firmware, which one was actually on there. But I believe it was TBS Smart Audio. But try both. So now we're on the configuration, and the way they have the motor set up is reversed. So they do have the right rear going to the left. Should turn around this way, and then this one, same thing, diagonally over, going to the left. Front right, going to the right. Props out configuration. A lot of people are doing that right now. And for the ESC motor protocol, we have DShot 600 running on here, and I have motor stop off, as you notice. That will give you a low idle, sort of like an air mode, and it'll, that way, when the stick is all the way down to the bottom, it won't just drop out of the air. Motor idle is set to 4.5. You can leave that pretty stock standard setup right there. Board sensor alignment, everything is zeroed out right there. Leave all those 0. If you want the quad to arm, if it gets stuck in a tree, go ahead and put your arm angle to 180. I believe it was only set to like 25 at the default. Change that. Your craft personalization, you can name it GT200 or your pilot name or whatever you'd like to right here on that part of the screen. And down here for receiver, I have an XM Plus from Frsky, so serial base receiver specs at S bus right there is perfect for that tab, and you want to select S bus for the receiver provider. The next one down. No 3D or GPS on this quad, and we only have 4 things turned on here. We have dynamic filter, anti-gravity, OSD, and telemetry. And I do have RX beacon tone set to beep. If I lose signal, it'll start beeping. And the rest of this is all up to you. You can change any of this on or off, beeper configuration. A lot of that comes pre-checked and on, but it really doesn't matter. So go ahead and save and reboot down at the bottom at this point before you leave this tab. And the quad should bring you back inside Betaflight. If not, you can disconnect your cable. And one other important piece of information, if you guys can't connect to your quad, you need to do one of 2 things. Use a USB data cable. It has to be a data cable. Look on Amazon and buy yourself a data cable. Make sure it's a dedicated data cable. Otherwise, it can't transmit data. The next thing is check out your drivers on the Mac and PC. Make sure you have your drivers installed. Now, for the power and battery, I have the minimum cell voltage turned down to 3 here and 2.9 on the warning so that it's not beeping at me every time I hit the throttle or do a punch out, because when the battery sags, the quad will start beeping. Kind of annoying. Now, failsafe, right here, you want to set the quad to drop, and that's kind of default these days. They used to have it defaulted to land, but I don't use that in fear of flyaways, in case it's a high throttle value that's just high enough to make the quad ascend and keep going. So save and reboot that. After you have both of those set, we're going to go back in, and now we're going to go down to the PID tuning, and I will just zoom in on this real quick. And you want to make sure that we have show all PIDs selected here so you can see everything that's going on here. And I will go ahead and zoom into the PIDs. And you can pause this right here if you'd like to copy my PIDs that are on this quad. I have the super rates down to 0.70 so that it's not super twitchy. I had them a little bit too high when I first started flying the quad, and it surprised me because it really is quite nimble. That True X design is really nimble. Much more nimble than the old school H configuration quads. So everything is looking pretty good there as far as the PIDs. If you want to, at this point, plug in a battery and check out your rates preview, you can move your sticks around and you'll see that this how the roll rate, flip rate, and pitch rate is. So it'll show you a real-time view right there of how much throw your quad has. Now you can go down to the receiver tab, and at this point you can go ahead and props off, grab a battery and plug in a battery to check out your receiver channel protocols and make sure all these bars are moving the right direction. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in my battery. I'll set the quad over there. And make sure all of your switches are facing away from you when you turn on your quad. Very important, so that you're not in arm mode or your beeper's not on like mine was just then. So that's a good habit to get into. Now, up at the very top is your roll axis, and we'll start out with the third one down. This is going to be AERT, and that's the way it should be set up in your channel map configuration for your XM Plus receiver. So it's usually going to be AETR. That's going to be your aileron, elevator, rudder, and throttle. So I'm going to check the yaw first. We're going to go left, right, just like that. When I'm moving the stick, I'll show you on the screen, it should look like that, left and right. And then your throttle is the next one. That's the T out of the AETR, or AERT. Now the next stick we're going to check is the right stick. So we're going to go roll first, left, just like that, right, just like that. Going to go pitch up, pitch down. So that's all your channel maps axes for your quad steering. So now let's go to the switches. And setting up switches, you're going to have to do that in your radio, in the mixer and the inputs tabs. Activate switches, because none of these will work until you have activated some switches. You have to tell your radio which switches you want to be active inside your OpenTX configuration. So that's very important. That's a whole different video. But now that we have 3 switches active in my radio, I always set my arm switch to be this one here. It's the long, tall one right here on the left side. Okay, you see that it goes on aux 1. That is for arming the quad. And my beeper is going to be on aux 3 right there. And I've made that aux 3. And you can put turtle mode on here, but a lot of times I don't do turtle mode on any type of 5-inch race quads. Now we're going to go down to modes, and you can go back and check see what auxiliary it was to add on which mode. So arm is going to be aux 1, and we knew that was aux 1 because we saw it in the channel map tab previously to this. So now I can flip this, and you'll see that this little yellow dot should move inside right here. So that would be armed. And right now I have no other ranges on here. I don't have stability mode, which would be angle mode. You can put that on your aux 2, and you're just going to move those sliders over, drag it in, horizon, aux 2, make sure that's aux 2. And then when you move your aux 2 switch around, just drag those in. It should, press save, you should see some movement here. You see how it moves and highlights angle and horizon. And that one looks just a little bit off, so I'm going to grab this and drag it to its center. And then the next one over is going to be acro. So I don't have to activate anything down here in the ranges to be able to be in acro mode. So I'm going to go all the way back to angle mode and all the way down a few more steps. Aux 3 was our beeper. So you can see the yellow dot is there. It's going to move that in. It makes it active. Nice loud buzzer on this one. I kind of like the buzzer. So that's pretty much the basics of your switch setup. So we'll go ahead and save that. And the next thing we'll do is OSD, and this is completely up to you. I have certain things set up. These are all the tabs on the elements that you can add on the screen here. Just simply check those on or off. You also have video format. Should have it set to NTSC, but right now it's on auto. Double check your OSD before you go out and fly your quad for the first time, because this bottom part could be cut off, and that's just always something I have to check, because depending on what format you're in, check that out. See that when I went to NTSC, everything disappeared here. Go ahead and go back to auto and drag things up if you don't see any of this on your screen. So just a little tip. We're going to go ahead and save that. Everything looks good there. I've just got the quad name, my battery level, what mode I'm in, and the fly minutes. And that's going to be timer 2. I always use timer 2 because it gives me the time that I spool the motors up until the time that I disarm. And that's armed on and armed off. So now we're good to go with the OSD. We'll go down to the CLI, and like I said before, you can type in version to see what version you're running. Also, really important, you need to do a dump, because if you went through this video and you set up all my settings on this quad for yours, you want to save that, type in dump and hit return, and they'll give you all those values. Now select everything here, select it all, and save to a file. A couple of different ways you can do that, and what you're going to do is you're going to copy and paste that from your text file if you need to later on to have these same settings on a newer version of the firmware, or if you just lost all your settings, somehow you erased it, you'll have them all as a backup. Save that to some external hard drive as a text file, and then you can come back and get things going again. So super nice setup, and very easy to do this. Very simple quad. But thanks again for watching this video, guys. We're all done with the GT200, and if you guys have any questions, as always, please post them in the comments below, and the community will try to help you out. If you want further help, jump into the Patreon and get into the discussion there behind the scenes in the Drone Camp Discord. But thanks again, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.